So we have this combust situation here with Uranus and the Moon, and again, the Moon is the need. Saturn rules control, so there's a deep need for control here in the fifth house. So basically, we have a situation of a control freak, which is dangerous. Saturn in the fifth house would also indicate difficulty and losses in speculations or gambling, and difficulty with romantic relationships as well. So just because Van der Sloot liked to gamble a lot doesn't mean he was good at it. With the Moon and Saturn here, we can also determine a possible affinity for older women romantically, an affinity for authority figures in sex, possibly suppressed romantic feelings toward the mother, and with Uranus here, sexual tendencies toward the eccentric or unusual practice of sexual tastes. This is a condition also set up in the sixth house, by the way, of Neptune, having Neptune being opposite of Chiron. What really comes to my eye here, though, is noticing the position of Chiron in the polarized 11th house. Chiron is opposite Uranus and opposite the Moon, which is an extraordinary energy. It's very intense, even ferocious at times. First, this makes for someone who is extremely sensitive internally. The tense energy channeling between a fifth house Moon amplified by the planetary ruler of the fifth house, which is the Sun, and then an electrified Chiron, electrified by the planetary ruler of the 11th house, which is Uranus. It takes the emotions and sensitivity of the native's Moon and electrifies it, okay? Keep in mind here that Chiron can be very mental, as Chiron is naturally associated with the sixth house, Virgo. Virgo being ruled, of course, by Mercury, Mercury being very mental. Mercury rules the thought process, the mind, and the mind is electrical. The Mercury rules the third house also. The brain works very much like a complex electrical circuit, right? We know this. The Moon in Van der Sloot's chart is combust with Uranus, and Uranus is totally electrical. And when you overload the mind and the emotions with electricity or electrical energy, you get a potential state of neurosis, or an actual state of the native being neurotic. Now, of course, we all, for the most part, walk around in a potential state of neurosis, at least most of us do. But I think in this case we can safely say that Van der Sloot walked around as a neurotic, not just in a potential state of neurosis, but as a neurotic himself. This makes for a very unstable situation. Amplify the opposing Chiron electrically with the natural planetary ruler of the 11th house, Uranus, and you have a very unstable situation. Electrically unstable, atomically unstable on deeper levels, on holographic levels, emotionally unstable. The energy becomes so potentially explosive that it becomes like an atomic bomb waiting to go off. Okay, the Moon, Uranus, both opposing Chiron. This is very intense, you guys. On one hand, this person could actually potentially be an extraordinary healer with a very rare gift to heal the electrical body. If this person has an opportunity to mature, if they are nurtured to move in this direction and go in this direction. If not careful, the energy goes the other way. It dives the other way completely in a negative direction. Now, add mind-altering drugs to this equation or condition, and things totally spiral out of control, like rapidly. Add cocaine, and the electrical or mental factor is totally off the grid. Add psychotropics or psychedelics, and the mental factor is totally off the grid. Psychedelics, of course, set the brain on fire with electricity. Perception is completely altered. And it seems that Van der Sloot has definitely a cocaine addiction or a problem abusing cocaine. He and Stephanie Flores were apparently doing cocaine that night. The picture becomes more clear already. Joran Van der Sloot becomes an emotionally explosive, neurotic atomic bomb, basically is what we're looking at. With Chiron opposing the moon, Van der Sloot also has boundary problems. It's easy to read that, boundary problems. Stephanie Flores, of course, breached his personal space, prying into Van der Sloot's secrets. This would, of course, unleash the Pluto in Scorpio energy that he carries with him wherever he makes his home, okay? His scorpion's nest. If ever anyone was in a place they didn't want to be in, she was it, man. She was there. Van der Sloot is very charismatic because of these energies, yes. But underneath that charisma bubbles volcanic, electromagnetic dangers, literally psychopathic danger, mental and emotional. And of course, in Van der Sloot's confession, he says that when he came back to his room, Stephanie Flores was prying into his private life, as he put it. She was in his computer, going through his email, going through his files on his computer, whatever, it doesn't matter. All he needed to pull the trigger on this atomic bomb, this emotional, psychopathic bomb, was to see that she was invading his privacy. And that's exactly what she was doing. She was right in the middle of the scorpion's nest where she did not want to be, where none of us would have wanted to have been. In the 6th house, we see that Van der Sloot's view of the world was to make his fortune deceiving the world. In the 6th house, he also has the part of fortune representing his way to make fortune or make money in this world. It's conjunct with Neptune there, the planet of deceit, also a planet that supports addiction, prisons, institutions, you get the picture. And as a young Capricorn here in the 6th house, he would find status and career opportunity, deceiving the world for status and money. We've all seen this over the past few years since the Natalie Holloway situation. We're all very aware of how good he is at deceiving the world for money and for status, and how concerned he is with status in the eyes of the world. We saw evidence of this also in the news, where he extorted money from various agencies and even the Holloway family itself, sadly enough, through deception to feed his addictions to drugs and gambling. And travel, world travel, of course, international travel. He obviously likes that, and that's apparent in his chart as well. The 6th house is also the house of health, and with Neptune here at 5 degrees, we can easily determine psychopathic tendencies. That's a given. With what further emphasizes this possible condition of psychopathic tendencies, though, is that Neptune here at 5 degrees squares the tail of the dragon in the 3rd house at 3 degrees. Again, the 3rd house representing the thought process, the mind, how we think. The tail of the dragon in this case then becomes a detrimental factor, creating constant tension. Psychopathic tendencies, guys. Without getting too much deeper into Van der Sloot's astropsychology, there we have it in a nutshell. As I mentioned in my video for the June 12 new moon, we seem to have destiny adding a big influence here. The head of the dragon for Van der Sloot in the 9th house in his natal chart, the head of the dragon in the 9th house in Stephanie's natal chart, and the head of the dragon with regard to mundane astrology or world astrology, as it is in Capricorn, as it was that day and the days leading up to this event, in the 9th house. Destiny? Yeah, I think so. I'm going to have to cut this short. And anyway, email me with your questions. Lusk out.